What's up? Let's get straight to it. I grew 3 super skunk plants. One of them as a no nutrient grow, which has a separate video, and now the other 2. To germinate the seeds, I let them soak in regular tap water for 18 hours. After that, I placed them directly inside of the pre-growing pots. I let them grow a few weeks inside of the smaller pots before I go outside with them, because my summer is kinda short and I want to get the most out of the dry weather period. If you watched my Guerrilla growing series, which you should have because it's nice, you would already know how I failed here. I wasn't able to keep the soil humid for a long enough time to really shoot out the first roots, so I took the seeds out of the pots again and placed them into some wet paper towels. This is my favorite germination method, and it even worked with the seeds after already being inside of the soil. That's kinda cool. The soil inside of the small pots is some leftover stuff from my balcony plants and nothing special. I watered them with a tiny, really tiny dose of basic balcony nutrients at this stage of growth. Really a tiny dose. Funny thing, by the way, this little one is one of the super skunks and turned out to be the biggest plant of the whole grow. And if you now wonder why I kept them behind my window for such a long time, this is the reason. This is how they look after being outdoors for 1 week. And if you want to know how I maintain the spot and all the other stuff I want to grow, check out the series. Here I will only focus on the super skunk growth, but some basics should be told. The soil I am using here is a mix of some good soil, at least I hope so, from a garden store, little claystone bricks that absorb water, and some dirt from the bushes to fill up the rest of the space. My reason for pots is that my growing spot has only a tiny layer of soil, and under that some big rocks, and under them just sand. So pots it is. The white plastic things are called slug collars. They don't work to 100%, but I am pretty sure they help the plant to not get overrun by slugs in the early stages of growth. I took a canister of water with again a small dose of nutrients with me. Every plant got something between 0.7 and 0.8 liters from it per week. Also good to know, always if there is a black fading effect, 1 week has passed, so this week was very humid. Rain literally every day. I am glad that no plant got eaten yet. The super skunks are those. The little one looks really, not that good, weird leaves and tiny. The other one okay in these conditions, I would say. Not too much to tell about this week, only some little grow progression. The next week, the bigger one of them was eaten a bit by slugs. So from this point on, this will be the eaten one and the other one is the skunky. No signs of flowering yet. And now the eaten one really earned the nickname. I think we could call that natural fimming by slugs. The skunky is looking fine, all leaves are exactly horizontal, that's kinda funny to see. And now the eaten one starts to form the first tiny buds. Oh yeah, overall looking really nice, but the slugs won't stop biting from it. I laid down some slug pellets, but they did not work good enough either. So what I did against slugs was the color and some pellets. Some bites here and there are okay as long as they won't kill the plant. And please don't comment stuff like eggshells, coffee or beer. I visit the spot once a week and cannot refresh the stuff every day. And beer is, by the way, the worst. So, and the skunky fell down. Wow. I tried to get it upward again by pushing the soil in the right spots and yeah, now it stands again like a big girl. But nothing to see yet except for the early flowers. Now it's possible to notice something else I haven't at this point. The eaten one is growing in the foxtailing style. So no big clusters of flowers like they usually grow, but more like the sausage style with less flowers at one spot, but more spread all over the branches. The little skunky is now bending to the other side and steals all of the sun from the plants behind it. So we are dusting it again. But still no flowers except for, again, the very early ones. This week's footage is a bit more limited because a wasp started to terrorize me because of the anti-midge spray on me. But the eaten one looks really smooth. This is like the first crack in my voice since some years, holy shit. And the skunky finally started to form the first real flower tops. Also good to keep in mind that I took some branches from the eaten one to try some outer flower cuttings. Poor plant, never mind. I removed some of the leaves that looked like these because if they fall off and land on some flowers, they could cause mold there. And there was already the first moldy spot on the plant. Gotta remove that fast so it won't spread. And now the skunky looks nice as well. The tops always look great in the sunlight. And you can really see what I meant with the foxtailing on these pictures. A regular flower top looks like this, a big cluster with white strings. And the foxtailing one is this sausage with equal flowers on the actual top and right on the branch. Now the eaten one starts to surprise me with many buds being formed even on the really low side branches. All of it looks surprisingly well. I would actually say I like the foxtailing style more than the regular one because like this more wind can access the flowers and more wind helps to prevent mold. Which feels kinda comfortable in the middle of big flower clusters without ventilation. And yeah, the Skunky is packing up good as well. I especially like the shape of the leaves from this one, really looks like the classical cannabis leaf. The plants also look kinda cool from the bottom where you have a really great view on the asses. Butts I mean. Here now some close-up flower shots. Looking cool and seeing trichomes is always nice. But it's still way too early to seriously check them. The last days were very humid again and I harvested all of the other plants before they get completely humiliated by the mold. These 3 are now left, the 2 super skunks and one of the northern lights. So it seems like these ones have a better resistance against mold than the others. Nice. So now the plants really start to pack up flower mass. At the end of a plant's life cycle, it starts to suck up the nutrients from its leaves to push the flowers even more, so I let them hang until the plant has no use from them anymore. Earlier I removed some yellowish leaves as well because they were completely dead and brown, but I think leaving slightly yellow ones on is beneficial for the plant. Another interesting difference between the plants is that the Skunky only formed buds at the really high upper part of the plant, while the eaten one formed them everywhere. And here is the little canister I was talking about, by the way. Now you can see the trichome ratio really good on this picture from the eaten one. Some amber ones are already there, most are milky but also still many a bit clear. So still some time to grow according to the perfect trichome ratio the internet is talking about. But to be honest, I always let them grow as long as I can before they start to mold, which mostly happens at the same time as the perfect ratio. Taking trichome shots from the Skunky was a bit harder because of the bad light there, but overall the same view. And as both of them still have many white strings and new flowers are growing, it should be right to continue. So the next week was really dry and hot. So this is the first period I visited the spot more often than once a week, as you can see at the dates I took the pictures later. So yeah. The visits weren't even enough and the plants were kinda dry. While relocating them I ripped many roots off because they established good in the layer under the pots because of the holes in them, and yeah, now they are missing a part of their drinking system. So my fault. So there were many of the brown, dry, used up leaves hanging on the plant. And these are the ones I remove because they should not fall on the buds if it gets humid again. But the flowers are still looking nice. And this week is basically the last real update before I harvest them. After this day it was again extremely humid and cold, and before I lose them to mold for a tiny bit of growth afterwards, I chop them. So first, the eaten one. But I don't know what to say to that except for the stuff you can watch yourself now, so time for some music. And as you can see here, everything is wet. And it's really time to come home. I was really afraid of mold at this moment because, as you can see, the whole plants took a shower for a whole week. But surprisingly, only some little spots. That's definitely okay for these conditions. These are the last checks of the trichome ratio. Not the sharpest shots, but the other spots were flooded and the light was really poor, so gotta do what's possible. So now let's chop them. To have a better idea on how much I got from them, here is the usable stuff laying on a chair. This one is the eaten one and the second one is the skunky. I am drying them in a room that I can darken but not change the temperature. And it was hot. This is not good, but I cannot change it, so gotta play the cards that were dealt. So normally it needs to be a lot cooler for a slow and good drying. To help the buds dry slower, I am dry trimming. So I am removing the leaves from the buds after the drying process has ended, so now as they will hang down, the leaves will form a nice cocoon around the buds and allow them to dry slower without losing too many terpenes and stuff. That's the theory. On this front line is the stuff from the eaten one hanging and the skunky is chilling in the back there. 3 days later the temperature lowered a bit and the humidity was optimal. Nice. And as you can see, the leaves are becoming a bit crispy and the cocoon is there. Another 4 days later the drying conditions were absolutely optimal. Well, maybe a bit too humid to be perfect, but just fine. And now 3 more days later they were optimal dry. I let them dry up to the point where the smaller branches made a snapping sound while being bent without breaking clean off. So like this. To be honest, maybe they were a bit too dry at this point for a wheat gourmet, but I had no time 1 or 2 days earlier to trim them. But I prefer to dry wheat that I can store for ages over to moist stuff that could get moldy. Anyways, so after trimming and drying, it's time for the final yield. The skunky's final yield is 23 grams. And the eaten ones is 27 grams. Well, I removed many branch tops for some cutting experiments and took some final branches for outer drying stuff, which failed. And without that, the yield would be a bit bigger. From this point, I am curing them in a glass with a 62% humidity pack.